Good morning, good evening, depending on what time I decide to post this. Welcome to the Miami Business Leaders Podcast, where we delve into the core of what matters the most to business owners. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Our mission is to empower, enlighten, and inspire entrepreneurs and business leaders like you by sharing insights, strategies, and real life stories from the heart of Miami's bustling business community. Whether you're just starting out or scaling to new heights in your business journey, we're here to guide you through every step. So let's dive in and explore the dynamic world of business together. And today we'll be talking with Carrie Flynn from Virtual Simplicity. And we're going to be talking about why knowing your audience and crafting the right messages are the only pathway to unlocking easier success and more revenue streams. So, hi, Carrie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me, Andre. I hope you're doing well
Yes.
today.
I am. And I kind of joked and said, depending on what time I post this, for our listeners, you may be used to me having this as a live session. And, Carrie and I are going to talk about that, as well. As far as, when do you post, when do you go live, when do you record? So, but before we start all that, because we're going to be talking about marketing growth and growing your business, Carrie, tell us a little about yourself.
Sounds good. So I'm Carrie Flynn. For those of you who don't know me, my company name is Virtual Simplicity, and I am a marketing strategist and consultant. I primarily work with female-run professional service businesses. However, I have worked with many men who are also wonderful as well. And my goal is to help our clients to create simple and sustainable marketing strategic planning, and when they're ready, create secondary and multiple streams of revenue using the power of digital marketing. Those are the bulk of my experiences. I also have been married 19 years, and I have two daughters. My oldest is 15 and my youngest is 7. And we actually live just slightly north of Orlando. So I live in Central Florida.
I feel like I see you all the time, though. The power of networking, right?
I know. We see each other all the time, even though I don't live in Miami. So
Yes. Although we call it the Miami Business Leaders, but we are global, and we've had people. My CPA from Oklahoma, she's
you're
been on the call.
expanding.
So yes, we're expanding. And so, Carrie, let's actually start off with like I mentioned, the little joke I made at the beginning, as far as recording versus live, because for the audience members, and I know a lot of our audience members, they also try to do, they have like their own YouTube channel and just trying to get the digital media out there. What I noticed in the last couple of weeks was when I did do my lives, the sessions, the viewings were very low compared to, a couple of, I would say sometime last year. And when I was talking to my CPA, shout out to Janelle, who also does lives, one of the things that she told me was like, hey, Andre, you're doing this at like, if you're doing it at 11 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock, people are working. They don't have the time to just sit there and listen to your podcast, although it may be great content, but just the timing is wrong. So talk a little about that, Carrie, as far as, if you were consulting me, how would you, give that advice?
Well, that one is important, but the answer is going to really vary depending on who you serve. And that really ties into what we'll talk a little bit more today about, I'm sure. But everybody's ideal client, as we sometimes hear called in the marketing space, or best fit client, whatever you want to call, they all are different. So their behaviors and how they act and how they scroll and do different things is all a little bit different. And so, for example, if like your ideal clientele was mostly people in the financial space and CPAs, it's really good to know that, number one, they just went through tax season. So they are extremely busy. They're probably working 12-hour days. So if you were going to do marketing efforts, you have to keep that in mind, that you may see lower views, lower engagements during busy times. But it's also true that most people are working during school hours, if you will. A lot of these folks have kids. So many of them are working between 9 and 5 or 10 to 4. And then they will like stop. And so most of the time, one of my other clients, he has a similar audience. So we typically will post things pretty earlier in the morning, and then we'll wait until after like work time is done. So maybe like later in the day. So Your CPA is not wrong. Like if you're going to do a live video, you want to think about, if you want high engagement, then do like the time, like later in the day or earlier in the morning if your audience is like scrolling during those times. If engagement is not as important to you, but you want it to be repurposed, you can do what Andrea is doing right now, which is record it, and then you can schedule it to go live at a later time. That is going to work for you, because sometimes when you do interviews like this, it's not great to do the recording at 8 a.m. That works for everybody. So that's just an option that I would keep in mind. So it's really important before you make decisions about when you're going to put out content or when you're going to post or when you're going to send an email. Lives is just one of them, but whatever type of content you're going to put out, it's really, really important to keep in mind about the behaviors of your particular ideal person that you want to be paying attention to you. And that includes strategic partners, not just clients and leads. So keep that in mind with those folks, and don't necessarily make these decisions based on your schedule, if that makes sense. So hopefully that answered the question well. I thought I ran on.
No, that's awesome. And you were good, because I'm having some technical difficulties. And although we're recording, I'm going to treat this as a live video. We're going to keep on going. We're not stopping.
Listen, don't worry about cutting it out. It's
exactly. Exactly. Done is better than perfect. And I like what you also mentioned about your scheduling, because the way I typically do my lives is based on my schedule. So I send like a Calendly link, and it's like, and it's always the weirdest times, right? So that's another great point that you talked about. So thank you for that insight. To all of you that are, you have your podcast and you have your video cast that you're posting on social media. I think that's, one of the things that I wanted to just point out is that, sometimes the timing does matter. And just because you're available at 1:00 on a Wednesday doesn't mean that the whole world just all of a sudden is going to pause their life in order to watch your video. So, all right. So let's get into it. So, you did say a word, best fit client. So let's first define what that best fit client is.
Right. So I have to give a shout out to someone in Provisors. His name's Bruce Lefetra. So he actually coined that term. I met him like a year ago. And for those of you who aren't aware, Provisors is a networking community. I met him in there. And it's a very similar phrase to, sometimes you'll hear people say ideal client, or you'll hear ideal client avatar. Like you'll hear any one of those phrases thrown around. And essentially, this just means the person that is the best type of client that you want to work for, but also that you can best serve, that can be best served by your services. And that's really important to know that, because we can use that information to attract the right people. And then conversely, we want to repel the people that are not a good fit. That's really important. So that's one of the very first things you want to think about when you're marketing in any area, whether it's relationship marketing and business development, whether it's social media, whether you're doing search marketing through YouTube, whatever type of marketing you're doing, you have to keep in mind your particular best fit client for you. And you may have, depending on your business, maybe you have a best fit client, but they're a little bit different at different stages, and that's okay. But for the first time, I always ask people to give me some details and clearly define who that is. And if someone can't, then I have a whole exercise that we go through where we work through that. So that way we can get clear on that, because you just won't be very successful, and it'll take you longer if you're just trying to pray, what sometimes people call pray and spray, like put it all out to everybody. It's like, that's a strategy that just takes so long. And the more you define and refine your ideal person that you really best serve, the quicker it is to attract them, and the quicker it is to repel the not great person for you.
Absolutely. By chance, is the exercise the 80-20 rule?
It's similar to that. When I went through a consulting training a couple years ago now, she called it the escape and arrival exercise. And it's very similar to, and then Dave Lorenzo has one that's very similar. He calls it like the IRT. There's variations of the same thing. And essentially it's forcing you to sit with like, and Brenda Burchard has another one, like they're all different named, but they're all essentially the same thing, where you're going to think about their characteristics. You're going to think about their pain points, their desires, their goals, their dreams, their aspirations. You're going to kind of sit with some information that feels kind of maybe a little silly at the beginning, like, why am I doing this? But really digging into that is going to be like a great foundation for you, like for the future. And then you may have to go back and refine it as your business changes. So it's a really important exercise, but it takes about 60 to 80 minutes for me to like have someone go through that and talk to me about it. And then I usually ask them to continue to do the work on their own. And that's like a great foundational document. It can be a part of your branding information, with your fonts and all the other things that you keep in there in your mission statement.
So many nuggets you talked about. I wrote notes, so I didn't interrupt you, but just going back to that 80-20 rule, for those of you that may not know, it basically is like you can use the 80-20 rule in almost all life. But basically says that 80% of your customers come from 20% of your business. And I recall many years ago when I was trying to determine, should I continue like my computer repair business? Should I go to like more cybersecurity? And when I was looking at, we did an exercise, and I looked at my sales sheet from QuickBooks, and it showed that my top clients, the clients paying us the most, were the clients that were less headache, the ones that would, appreciate your pricing. They don't negotiate. They say no problem, whatever we need, and they say thank you at the end. And when I look at my the bottom clients, when I say the bottom of that sheet, which would have been the 80%, that's the ones that are, nickel and diming you, disputing charges, paying you late. And and that's when I decided, oh my gosh, I needed to get out of the computer repair business, and I needed to shift the strategy. And that's how I was able to develop like the verticals that I wanted to, because this is the type of clients that I wanted. So and just going back to the digital marketing, and of course you'll speak more about that in a couple of minutes, but you kind of mentioned it. It was the pay and spray, right?
Spray and pray.
Yeah.
It's a very Southernism way to say, like, you're just putting it out forever. You're just trying to reach anybody and everybody, which, by the way, when you're starting out, so if you're like more of a startup, you're newer in your business, maybe you're branching out, having worked like I did, work full time, and then you branch out on your own. Like, that's okay to start that way. You can't scale a company long-term with that strategy. That will not work. And there's a book I would recommend if you're interested in learning about like this concept of 80-20. It's called 10X is greater than 2X. Dr. Benjamin Hardy. It's an excellent book. It kind of seeps on and digs into that similar concept of, really hampering in on that 20% is really going to answer a lot of issues you might be having 80% of the time elsewhere. It's an excellent book. I actually heard him speak at a marketing conference. It's a really great read. It's on Audible. You can get it anywhere, but that's a really good book to kind of taper on that. But there's nothing wrong with doing a pray and spray to everybody at the beginning. But for someone who's looking to scale, like I primarily work with companies who are either in our accelerator program, they're typically scaling to $1 million or right at $1 million to $3 million. And then at the higher level, it's more like 5 million and up to 15 million. Those people who are maybe closer to $1 million, like those folks are making that turn from getting it defined and getting it clear. So that's an important thing to do if you're looking to kind of grow and you want to scale it. If you don't care about that, then you can ignore the rest of what I'm about to say. But it's important if you want to grow.
A funny joke. I remember I was at a community event, and but specifically it was about diabetes, and I was just curious to know because I had a family member that's going through that, and I knew nothing about diabetes. And it was a community event, so the government sponsored it, and one of the commissioners kind of joked. And he was like, and it was mostly older. I was probably the youngest person there.
Right.
And the commissioner joked because they had vendor tables and they had food trucks and things like that. And just going back to know your audience, here you had ice cream, like they're selling ice cream. They're selling like all this unhealthy food. And the commissioner was like, did these vendors that just paid to have their food trucks out here not know who the audience is going to be? Because no one's going to, well, hopefully nobody goes and starts to buy the unhealthy stuff that they shouldn't be. So
Yep.
again, it's just, and then now when you talk about like your Google ads and your Facebook ads, and just, even doing lives and, you know, let's just say my podcast here, Miami Business Leaders, if it was just called Miami, some other word, you got to be very specific in
Yep.
your target market. So he made it a good joke. I butchered his joke, but it was pretty,
No, but
similar to,
seriously.
yeah, yeah. So as we go on to the next question, I believe you had some client case studies where you've seen these best fit clients working well. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I have a client who I have worked with about a year now, and one of the things, and I've shared this before, his case study is really interesting because he has actually put in the work to really define his ideal client and has really gotten great at understanding them and knowing them. And so what I came in and he has two different businesses. One is a service firm, and the other is like an educational company that is supporting folks in a particular industry and providing trainings and coaching and support. So he had a signature program that I came in and helped to launch that again. And that's one of my expertise areas. And so we created like a great marketing strategy, a launch plan for that. We ended up having a little bit over $100,000 in one day for that program. And the reason why that isn't some magic, but every time, because I've been through over 50 launches at this point, a ton in the last 8-9 years. And one of the things that I see people that have that level of success do that is probably different from people who aren't having it at that same level is folks like that who are spending the time over years getting to know their best person, really understanding who they are, and then giving value and communicating and showing up consistently where they are. And that person that I just referenced did that for over a year and a half before I even came in the picture. Wow. So I was able to build off of that with them and fast track success. All they needed was guidance and strategic planning. They didn't need me to have to craft that messaging as much, which was so great. So it made my job a little quicker and easier. So they have been successful in a large part due to that consistency, and they know what their person's pain points and desires are. They talk to them. They pay attention to things that they're saying, and they adjust as necessary. And so that's important to keep in mind. You can take that same advice and apply that to a professional service firm. It works in every industry. So that can help you avoid marketing tactics that aren't necessary for you. So for example, for that person, we know that we don't necessarily need to put money into Facebook ads because they're not there. So we don't need to have a strategy for that. We don't necessarily need to worry about Google things right this minute because we know where the majority of these folks are spending time. And we got that information because, again, we were communicating and paying attention and adjusting the strategy based off the person and not what we've heard online or so-and-so told me to do or what we think's just throwing spaghetti at a wall, and hoping it works out.
The word I thought about as you're talking is meticulous. And I wanted to show the definition. Of course, everybody knows what meticulous is, but it says showing great attention to detail and very careful and precise. Yep. And as you're talking, I'm thinking like, I remember when I hired someone to redo my website. And nowhere there did they ask me, what is my client's pain point? Well, why are they calling you? Who is your client? What's your, all they wanted is, okay, cybersecurity. Do you do data backup? Do you do antivirus? Do you go on site? Like it was just your typical, product and services. But, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to admit, Carrie, my website still is talking about the services and not about the pain point, not about the, your current IT person probably, takes 3 hours to resolve something. and we
Yeah.
can resolve it in 15 minutes based on our KPIs for the last year.
Yep.
Wow. So this is an opener even to me.
I have a recommendation for you. If a website is a pain point for you and you're concerned that that's a pain point, I would read the book Story Brand by Donald Miller. It's excellent, but there's a whole section in that book where he talks about how a client is going to come to your site and how you're not the hero of the story. Your client's the hero of the story. You're the guide. You're the facilitator guiding them. So everywhere you go, doesn't matter if it's a website or LinkedIn or what have you, you're not the hero. It's not about you. You're the guide to service your particular person, and you're helping them achieve the success, the great ending to their story. It's a really interesting book, but it does share like how people really go through websites. I used to build landing pages and sales pages when we were doing just launches, and there's an entire strategy of how I evaluate a page. Like, because it is about the other person, and it's about drawing them in and helping them see what could be possible for them. And our service, whatever it is, can help them get to that. And that's a huge area of opportunity for so many people in professional services. Just being an estate planning attorney is not enough of a differentiator. Like, there's more to it than that.
I meant to ask you, you had used the word digital marketing. Because when I think of, yes, there's marketing, but then there's digital marketing.
Yeah.
So what does that encompass as far as like what type of those, what categories is that?
Yeah. So there's kind of like four, when I look at my blurry background, but there's really four, like kind of again, this comes from some past training, but really four kind of roadways of marketing, if you will. So the first one is relationship marketing. A lot of people will know that as like business development. So that is really kind of a more traditional marketing strategy. So you will see things like networking, partnerships, PR, business development. So if you're in professional services, that's your number one referrals. That's your number one kind of, that should be where most of your focus should be, is because it's a very effective strategy for people in professional services. The next one would be organic social media. So you'll see things like LinkedIn, you'll see things like Facebook, not Pinterest, but Instagram, so TikTok, etc. That's a great secondary strategy for people in professional services. It's really to help you build know, like, and trust. It's help you to do that with strategic partners, because strategic partners will look you up on social before they refer you. Same with clients and leads. So it just makes you look trustworthy and alive, but it shouldn't be your number one, because it takes longer to build an audience. It's a slower burn. So that should not be your number one, but it's a great secondary strategy. The third one is search marketing. Search marketing encompasses like anything people are looking up, like how to search. So Pinterest, Google, YouTube, podcasts, these are all excellent. These are fantastic ways to create core content, and you can repurpose that content for your social media. So if you're looking for an easy way to create one piece of content that you can repurpose, a lot of my clients, past and present, have a YouTube channel, they create a podcast, or they do blogging. That's another one that falls into that category. And they can take that main piece of content that's long and repurpose it. It's a great strategy. That's also a slower burn, but it's a very effective strategy. And then the final one is what we call paid marketing, paid search. So these would be any advertising. So Google ads, LinkedIn ads, anything advertising related that's paid would fall into that. For most of you, I want you to pretend that one is not there right now. There's a handful of industries that need to be doing paid marketing, for which it's extremely effective all the time. For most of you, I want you to ignore that. And it's once you get the other stuff sorted, you get your back end things working great, and you get your messaging right, then you can add this. I call gas to the fire. That just puts gas to the fire. If you don't have anything working right on the other ones, I just want you to imagine money going into the furnace. Like, it's
just thinking that. I was going to say, yep.
So that's a great scaling strategy once you have the other things sort of comfortable and working. There are a handful of industries like many lawyers who are in personal injury it's a successful strategy for them. Like they can do that, but there's so few for which I would just so few. So don't go there first. People want to go there first. They think it's easy. No. So those are the kind of four main kind of categories. And you can see that digital marketing is kind of falling into, there's some different examples of digital marketing into all of those. And digital and traditional marketing sort of work well together. Many people I work with in digital marketing are looking to build secondary streams of revenue, and they want to create something that is just going to be sold digitally, whether it's a product, a service, sometimes it's a coaching program. They're ready to expand into a thought leadership role, and they want to do that through just digital marketing. They don't want to necessarily become a speaker full-time, or they don't want to go and travel a ton, and they're looking for a way to do that that's simple and sustainable. And doing what my client has done, where he now has 2 successful 7-figure companies, is great because he's really the face of that one company, but then he's working in this other as the actual, like, you know, service provider and CEO. So there's still work, but it's not as much work as his firm, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And just going back where we talked about burning the money, because a lot of people want to do that. They want to just go ahead and like, okay, I'll put, X hundred because that's the fastest, and thinks that, okay, I'll just lay back now and wait.
Don't do it.
But it's not. So another question I had is, so what does that mean as far as non-digital? So print advertising, direct mail, telemarketing, outdoor advertising. Is it safe to say that stuff is pretty dead?
No, I actually kind of like it. It just depends. You have to factor that into, I almost look at it like, just like, I'm trying to think how, my mom used to do this. She was in real estate for like 30 years. And I think it's a good strategy. It's just, it's an investment, and you have to factor that into your budget. But I don't think it's dead, believe it or not. It just really depends on what you do, and just like anything else, how you're doing it. So I have seen mailers work really well. Like I mentioned Dave Lorenzo has done them many times, and they worked great. So it's really important to know how you're doing them. It's kind of similar to ads, I look like, where we don't just want to do it and hope like it works out. We do want to have it be very specific. So maybe you're doing like a specific event and you want to throw it out there. I'm not necessarily sure it's great if you're hoping to get business and you just want to like share about your business, but it could be great for specific events. I've seen a lot of real estate people do this really well. My former real estate agent who helped me in Jacksonville when we moved here still sends me mailers like years later. And so she's a great example of someone who, it just kind of keeps you top of mind. And so if you choose to go that route, it probably needs to be part of your budget. And it also probably needs to be something that's specific. And she's almost using it as a newsletter, but she's also sending out like gifts and things about events that she's doing. And so I think it needs to be a part of your ascension marketing strategy. Maybe not something for new business, but maybe it's an ascension strategy that you're doing with past clients, warm leads. That's maybe a follow-up strategy I would recommend to someone, and not necessarily, hey, go send out this mailer. Hope that people sign your services. People need to know you, especially now. They're making very intentional buying decisions right now. It was not necessarily that slow 5 years ago. It was different back then. So you just got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, believe it or not, I remember when I've been in the IT business for, my gosh, 24 years now. So I was there back in the Yellow Page days. And I remember, one of their selling, and I'm sure the selling point still is on the digital side, you let me know, is they said it takes 7 times for someone to
7 to 12.
7 to 12 now. Wow. Back then,
it's a lot.
Yeah. So every year when it was time to renew the Yellow Pages, he would be like, no, do it again because, it takes 7 times. I was like, oh my gosh, or one of those, put your postcard inside the flyer magazine.
Yeah. My mom did all that. We're talking TV ads. We're talking, she had that. She also did some ascension strategies, like sending out calendars and other things to past clients. So there's all sorts of ways to do that. And I am not anti-traditional, because relationship marketing is so powerful. Like, please lean in if you're in professional services. And it's just about doing the one that's the best ROI and the best opportunities for you. And that's one of the biggest things I do with clients when I consult with them is there's lots of things you could do, but not all of them are the best for right now. They might be great for later. And so we have to help them kind of prioritize what should be right now that you can get a great ROI on. So
that goes back to knowing your client, because
yeah.
if you know your client is, let's just say you sell, Medicare products,
Honey
little,
mailers.
yeah, then you do mailers because that's where they are. Not to say grandma's not on Facebook, but she actually looks forward to going to the mail,
My mom
looking
is
through.
72.
Yeah, yeah.
Same.
And then, or if I'm thinking also where if you want to send it to a community that's just known to have a lot of kids, and maybe now you're a pizza shop and you want to do a, buy one, get half off pizza or something, or
That's good.
toppings or whatever.
Those are
So
great
that,
examples.
yeah,
They're not
yeah,
wrong. They're just, you have
right,
to be smart about your business and the people you're serving. So
right.
like, I know most of my clients are anywhere from like 30 to 50 usually is my typical age range, sometimes 55.
Mhm.
So that's my range. And I like getting mail, but like I'm not going to buy something. I'm going to look at their social. I'm going to search up and read reviews. I'm going to do all sorts of things before I sign with something. So you have to kind of cover the digital bases as much as you do traditional with my age range, which is like elder millennial, Gen X,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. So let's, we've been talking a lot about strategy, and I think that's one of the reasons why I was looking forward to this, because it's not just let me go on to social media and let me just do something, or let me go on some type of digital marketing platform and let
Yeah.
me just see what sticks. Because we talked about in the green room, one of the things that you help with the strategy, you consult,
Mhm.
not necessarily doing the work, but so give us that ideal client in that typical scenario of people that you may be working with that actually would have like an in-house marketing person, but now where do you come in for that?
Yeah, so I find that I have two different this is where you can sometimes have people in different phases. So I will have someone, typically a woman, my age, a little older, been in business, established. And if they have a team, they probably have a very small marketing team. And typically they are someone who is newer out of college or maybe is under 5 years experience. That's my typical experience. And either they're part-time or they're working full-time. So sometimes they're part-time, they're not working more than 20 hours, and sometimes they're working full 40 hours. It just really depends the size of that business. And then on the other spectrum, I sometimes have folks who are very successful, but they haven't even hired for marketing yet. So they're still doing all of the business growth activities themselves. And so there's a lot of burnout that can come up with these folks. And they may be very knowledgeable of marketing and have done a lot of right things, but they can't figure out, like, they're like the tree, like they're in the forest of their business and nobody can quite see what's the best opportunity because they're just like trying to do the day-to-day, and you can get really stuck in the back end of trying to do the day-to-day and manage all the fires and various things that come up in a growing business. So I have worked with a lot of different types of professional service firms at different stages and have seen lots of things work well. And I know what to look at to help somebody figure that out. And I also am not tied to this as an employee, which is really good because there's no concern that if I give a bad idea or if the thing is not received well by the owner or CEO, my job is not at stake here. And sometimes when you have folks that are an employee and they're maybe a little bit greener, they're not as, it's a little different to approach an employer versus I'm a consultant. That's literally my job, is to give you my opinion and tell you what I think is a good idea, why we should do it. So it's safer for someone like me to come in and show them A, B, C, D, here's what we should do. Here's my experience with this. And it's not as scary or threatening. So that's typically the type of person I work with, someone who's ready to scale, but there's either some burnout there's some timing. They just don't have the ability or time to do it. And there's some concern about how am I even going to do this when they already feel like maybe they're doing all the right things and they're just not sure like what to do next. They feel like they'd have to do more in order to get more, which is not true.
Yeah. So we're going to go back real quick to when you talked about they may have someone in-house and they're right out of college. And you said first 5 years, right? And the first thing that I thought of is one of my clients where it's always, it's not a constant churn, but their marketing person typically doesn't stay with their company for 2 to 3 years. And the reason I'm finding the reason is because he gets them right out of FIU, which is a great school, and they can't go and work for the big corporations because they don't have the experience, right? They don't have they're book smart, but they're not street smart yet. So they go work for the little 50, 80 person company. They learn there, and then they hit a glass ceiling because maybe their salary is capped or whatever. And then from there, they then now apply for the corporate positions and then they get it. So by having that, so the first thing is by having someone like you on the team, especially when it's that constant burn every 3-5 years, you're going to be the one to kind of say, no, this is our strategy. This is where we're going. Because the CEO doesn't have time to sit down with her or him to say, this is what we've done and this is what's worked. So now they can kind of just say, look, you're going to come in, you're going to be doing all of the groundwork, but in a way, is it safe to say they would kind of report to you in that aspect, or if they're having trouble or needing the meetings and things like that, they would come to Carrie. And then the second thing I wanted to talk about also, I don't know, do you know Will Dukes?
I do not know that name.
No, okay. But when I had I needed a salesperson. I ended up becoming the salesperson, but I hired a full-time salesperson, but I didn't have a strategy. I didn't know, should they be doing cold calling? Should they be going networking events? How do I pay them their commissions? And so I hired him as a sales consultant because yes, even though he was reporting to me because I was technically his boss, but I had no way of giving him the ammo. I mean, I had the ammo, but I couldn't tell him how to use it. And at the same time, especially with sales a lot, they can, BS you and be like, oh yeah, the sale is coming, it's in the pipeline. So in that case, I hired him as a consultant and he helped me through that process. So it's in the same way of like saving a lot of money by just getting someone that's been there, that's done that. And that way nobody feels threatened of their job. You're not going to come in and then go to the owner and say, that person's graphic is really, really bad. I can do a better job in the graphics, so I can do a better job on the post. No, you're there for consulting and you're answering to the owner at the end of the day, but then you're giving that maybe that younger person.
That's 100% what it's like. I am not your boss, but I am like a mentor. I'm a guide. I support, and I have enough experience that whether they have sometimes it's been, teams where it's like 3 to 4 people and we're all meeting together in those meetings. And sometimes it's like me, the CEO or owner, and one other person. And like I said, sometimes they don't have anybody. It's just me and the person one-to-one. So it's been a little bit of everything. But the nice part is because I taught for so long, like I'm comfortable. I taught for 15 years, for those of you who don't know, like I'm comfortable in those settings where I have to sort of train and teach and bring people up. And I'm a pretty easygoing like personality too. So I don't have that leadership style that can feel very kind of assertive or even aggressive. And so I think it makes people much more comfortable to be open and honest. And I'm not a threat because I'm not there to like take anybody's job. I'm simply there. And when people leave and come and go, I can train up the next person that comes in. So if they hire another part-time, full-time marketing person to do the kind of take the strategy and run with it, I can teach them how to not only do the implementation, but I can also support them with the strategy. So I can even improve their skills and abilities so that they can see it from a strategic perspective too. So it really is a win-win because for teams that are not like, ready to have a full-time CMO, which is a whole like thing getting to that point. That's a great kind of thing to have someone as a consultant, as like you said with your sales consultant person. It's nice to have when you're not quite there to hire someone to be the sales director or manager full time. It's lovely.
Yes. So, Carrie, as we start to wrap up, was there anything else that you, and unfortunately, we can't go, we're not live, so we can't do the audience participation, but I did put on the bottom Carrie's information. And Carrie, can you go ahead and just give out your it's just spell it out, because we also, this goes into a podcast. So in case someone's listening, they can't see the ticker.
Yeah. So if you're interested in connecting with me through social media or email, the best place, my email address is Carrie, Carrie, at virtualsimplicity.co. There's no M at the end. And then my website is the same, virtualsimplicity.co, no M. And it will take you right to our website. You can learn more about what I do, the services we provide, how we help, who we're trying to help. And there is a form there if you're interested in learning more and want to talk more about one-to-one support and services, whether it be for a solopreneur, someone who doesn't have a team, or if you're scaling and want to have more high-level consulting support. We have both options, accelerator and high-level consulting. You can just fill out the form and we can chat and support, see if it would be a good fit.
Awesome. So what else? We'll have that ticker there for a few more minutes. So what else did you want to cover that maybe I didn't ask that you think would be beneficial for our audience?
We covered so much. I would say if you're concerned about how do I even, where do I go to, like, how do I figure out my ideal person? Or maybe you're concerned about how do I refine that? I'll just give you a couple quick tips on what to do. There's a couple short strategies. So the first thing you can do is pay attention to patterns. Like, start paying attention to the current clients that you have, or if you have recorded calls with clients that you've done in the past, rewatch those or have a team member do it and just look for patterns of things they're saying to you, because you'll start to notice things they're saying, and make a note of the things that they're saying. Maybe you have a current client and then look at the gaps, like, where do they want to be? Where are they wanting to go? What's the gap in between? And then how does your service kind of meet those gaps? So that's the starting place. And then I would also say, like, keep in mind when you're communicating either through your website, social media, in person, relationally, wherever you're showing up, make sure you're speaking their language. You want to use how they speak. You don't want to use your industry speak or, words that your clients are not going to understand. This is especially important for people in finance and law. A lot of the folks that you service don't use the same lingo. And then make sure you're considering pain points and dreams, desires, and aspirations when you're creating content and talking to folks. That is it's really the transformation that gets someone to engage with you and become a client, that they believe your service will provide that transformation. It's not about the how you're going to do it. That's people care less about that. They're looking for you to hopefully solve the pain point they have or meet the desire that they're looking for.
Carrie, I can't believe I didn't ask you this question. Here I am in technology.
Oh, fun.
Ask you this question. Digital marketing in AI, Apple Vision glasses.
Oh, geez.
I don't know much about it, and not to put you on the spot, but I know Apple now has those glasses where.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, obviously at the end of the day, it's all about advertising for these companies. So, so the two questions is digital marketing AI, and I hope the elephant in the room is always ChatGPT.
Yeah, but there's many other ones.
Yeah, but just sometimes I see people, and it's just so obvious they use ChatGPT. Yeah. Let's dive in and some words that it's not your typical word that you would.
Insights is the one that always comes up.
Oh, insights.
Yes.
Let me make sure my introduction didn't have
insights. Nope. Is one that I always do, that ChatGPT really likes to put into things, just so you guys know. Insights.
So I know we talk big picture, like this whole conversation was about big picture, but I just wanted to just touch for a quick second on AI, not necessarily do's and don'ts, but just where do you see it going big picture?
Big picture, I think it's the cat's out of the bag, or the lid is off the whatever you want to call it. So it's not going away. That's really important. That's like waving get free, and people were panicking and Y2K. You remember all that? Like,
Right, yeah.
It's not going away. So that's really important. Like, you have to be able, that's why I said very early on in this conversation that like how you market will shift as the market changes, as the world changes. So you have to be able to ride the wave, is what I always say. That being said, there are like rights and wrongs, or like in just standards that you should abide by. So like if you choose to use ChatGPT as an alternative to know your ideal client, people are smart. People are not dumb. They know. And so use the tools for your benefit and in a way that's ethical for marketing. So the best advice I have on AI is, if you struggle to get started with copy, many people use it for that because they struggle with copywriting. Use it as a starting point. And then you edit and refine from there, or use it for your repurposing. You can have it take a transcript of a video you made and have it create some content from that transcript. That's much more ethical ways to do it. That isn't going to make you look like you literally just copied and pasted something from ChatGPT and put it. People will know because it tends to use the same language, especially if you're kind of lazy with it. And I'm using air quotes here. If you're lazy with it and you don't really use it to refine it to your voice. So that's my advice. Like, use the tools. They're great. They're so wonderful. Like, use them, but do it in a way that's ethical, in a way that it just diminishes your authority and your know, like, and trust when you don't take the time to do the groundwork to support your clients and your potential clients in the right way.
Awesome. So you hear that, everybody? ChatGPT is not a marketing strategy.
It's not.
It's a tool. It's a tool.
Supports you. It's not the thing. It's
exactly.
Yes.
I'm sure you get that. You're getting that question a lot, right?
I get asked about that a lot. And then I also hear a lot about like things that they did for marketing that they wish they hadn't done. That comes up a lot. I hear about all the things they wish they hadn't paid for. Both of those right now.
Oh yeah, and that's what I was going to conclude with. Was there anything else, Carrie, before I conclude?
No, that's perfect. I'm excited too.
So the conclusion that I have is that in business, and this is to all the business owners listening, in business, a lot of times we just want to throw something on the wall and stick. And at the end, you realize that you wasted and spent so much money on things that didn't work. And if I had to do this again, if I had to start again 24 years ago, in every avenue, yes, it's great that when you do pull that parachute, you hit the rocks and things like that. But sometimes it's not necessary. It's just a matter of, okay, who's been there and who can now help me go through this path so that way I can glide and not hit those not hit the rocks as my parachute is landing. Yeah. So that's why, Carrie, I love what you do. And I really appreciate coming onto the podcast today. I'll definitely let you know when we go live, so that way you can watch yourself. And then if someone has a comment, you can comment. But if anything, Carrie's information is there on the bottom. And I guess I'll see you soon at our next Provisors meeting.
Yay! Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. All right.